Celebrating 47 years on the air, award-winning Farmweek is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, bird flu still on the move. In this week's follow-up, authorities investigating how it moves. Plus, a new franchise on Farm Week, Inside Extension. This episode getting free help with your trees. In Southern Gardening, daylilies, they don't get much more low maintenance than this. And in our feature, a late spring encore, tree farm economics in Mississippi. Farm Week starts right now. Hello everyone, I'm Mike Russell. Great to have you with us again here on Farm Week. Zach Ashmore is out on assignment. We have a new franchise here on Farm Week to share with you today, and two encore stories about Mississippi's #3 industry, forestry. But first, an update on bird flu. H5N1 still apparently making its move and very much under scrutiny by scientists and ag experts, studying more intently just how bird flu is moving through various populations. Peter Tubbs has more.
The story behind the H5N1 virus in dairy cattle continues to unfold. Progress on identifying, studying, and preventing the spread of the virus in dairy cattle, which was first confirmed on March 25th of this year, is moving ahead on multiple fronts.
We have learned a lot, but there's still a lot yet to learn. Certainly we now know that the movement of lactating dairy animals has played a role in some of that spread.
The movement of dairy cattle is believed to have been the mode of transfer for most of the 36 herds with the first confirmed cases that were found in 9 states. As the industry has become more cautious with transporting dairy cattle, the spread has slowed. 22 states currently have restrictions on the importation of dairy cattle. Questions still remain as to why the symptoms of the virus in cattle are markedly different from those that appear in poultry.
In the animal movement within a farm, still looking a lot like the spread of mastitis. And so when you have common milking equipment, that can be a mechanical conveyance between animals. So that's probably a very high likelihood that is a predominant cause within a herd.
Experts suggest that some of the slowing in new cases may be due to increasing temperature as the country moves into summer. Others in the dairy industry suggest that part of the slowdown in new H5N1 cases in the nation's dairy herd come from a reluctance of dairy owners to report or even test for active cases of H5N1 in their herds. The passage of the virus from dairy cattle to humans has occurred 3 times. The first case was discovered in early April, and the second was found last week when a Michigan dairy worker tested positive for bird flu. Testing of beef and milk products continues in the quest for a better understanding of the virus.
Jamie Jonker also said that where milk from dairy cows is concerned, pasteurization is still doing its job, effectively neutralizing the H5N1 virus in milk from infected cows and preventing a food safety issue. This week, we introduce a new franchise to the show, Inside Extension, short stories based on the multitude of ways that MSU Extension takes care of what matters in the community at large. Here's Zach Ashmore with Tree Help.
Here at the base of the tree, we see all the sawdust. Just
part of the land grant mission is giving answers to those with a problem. Commonly, this could include issues within city limits, such as dying trees on a property that threatens someone's home. Finding out what's causing the issue and how to deal with it is part of Extension's job. In Oktibbeha and Webster counties, Cody Mills is there to help.
So today I was looking at, had a call about some pine trees that had some issues with them. Said they had sawdust around the base of the pine tree. So that perked my ears up. Figured that was a southern pine beetle. So we come out and looked at the tree, and in fact it was a southern pine beetle. So Extension, we get a lot of calls dealing with all aspects of agriculture pretty much, but a good bit of our calls are with pine trees, and we have to know a little bit about pine trees to be able to help our public. This is a weekly call we get, sometimes several times a week, sometimes several times a day. We go look at pine trees, especially the past year with the drought issues we've had and the hard winters. A lot of pine trees have struggled.
Cody says weather issues affecting pines can make them weak and susceptible to infestation. Unfortunately, by the time you see signs of it, it's likely too late.
So if you have that problem, especially in urban areas, the solution's pretty hard to nail down. Trees that have been affected and that are losing pine needles, not many solutions for that. You kind of got to cut your losses. The pine trees that are around the area that are not affected, you can do trunk injections, or more common, you can do bark sprays, like Onyx Pro, for example.
Like most extension agents, Cody is involved in more than just agricultural or forestry issues. Agents tend to wear many hats, and in Mississippi, that includes 4-H.
Other things that extension agents do is 4-H. That is a huge part of it. Just like this coming week, we have our Northeast District Horse Show coming up. And so all the 4-H youth that are interested in the horse programs that we offer, we are ramping up for that district show. So Extension helps out a lot with 4-H, and not only horse shows, kayaking clubs, fishing clubs, robotics. I mean, I don't have enough fingers on my hand to go on with all the 4-H programs, but Extension helps out major time with the 4-H programs as well.
Indeed it does. 4-H is a huge thing here in Mississippi, and Extension is a major part of it. Also, for commercial-grade herbicide or insecticide sprays, you may need to get a private applicator certification to use them. Fortunately, MSU Extension can help you there as well. Go to extension.msstate.edu and search for private applicator certification, or type in the web address you see here. Cost is only $20 and the certification lasts 5 years. And that's our first Inside Extension story. Extension is virtually everywhere in this state, and thanks to that land grant mission that Zach referred to, Extension is part of Mississippi life in thousands of ways. So we'll be doing a lot more stories like this one. Stay tuned. In Southern Gardening this week, the daylily. It's about as close to a super flower as you can get, maintenance-free, disease-free, pest-free, and handles well in most soils. Here's Eddie with 3 of the many varieties.
Daylilies are one of my favorite plants. Today's Southern Gardening is at Rolling Oaks Daylilies in Picayune, Mississippi, admiring hundreds of beautiful daylilies blooming on the property. Let's take a closer look at some of these beauties. Originally, the only daylily colors were yellow, orange, and red. Today, we have colors ranging from near whites, pastels, yellows, oranges, pinks, vivid reds, crimson, purple, nearly true blue, and fabulous blends. Hydra is an unusual formed, vibrant yellow double daylily with 8.5-inch blooms with teeth. Crossbones boast a fancy face with delicate ruffled edges that make it one of my favorites. Its orchid purple colored blooms with feather sky lilac watermark and yellow-green throat really pop in the landscape. Daylilies with ruffled and toothed petals have always been a favorite of mine. Buddy's Kayla daylily is a great example. It is a rock star in the landscape. I love the black-purple blooms with green throats and white toothed edges. Daylilies do not grow from bulbs, they grow from bare roots. These roots store nutrients and energy, allowing them to survive harsh conditions and regrow each year. Their flowers grow best when planted in full sun in moist but well-drained soil. In hot climates, dark-colored cultivars require afternoon shade to help retain their color. When planted in the correct location, daylilies can bloom year after year with little care. I hope daylilies become one of your favorite plants too. I'm Eddie Smith, and I will see you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up, one of my favorite Farm Week stories, tree farm economics. We head to the peaceful town of Aberdeen, Mississippi. There we meet Mr. Bobby Watkins, whose tall pines planted more than 30 years ago are both his retirement income and his legacy. Mr. Watkins was born to be a tree farmer. His love of the land sustains the here and now and will cradle generations to come. That's coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believe in my own work and in the opportunity I have to make my life useful to humanity. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families that I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. I believe that these are the keys to democracy, and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest, but also in the interest of society. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance towards the views of others. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
This week in the markets, prices falling, and a closer look at Mississippi forestry. We start with the numbers, all commodities we follow on the downswing except for one. Let's take a quick look. Last week's only gain, soybean oil up a little over 1/2 cent. That's more than a % rise from the previous week, and a continuation of a steady rise over the past month. Last week's biggest loss, corn, down just under 19 cents, more than a 4% decrease from the previous week. And now an encore special report by Zach Ashmore focusing on the Mississippi timber industry. We talk a lot about forestry on this show. It's the number 3 commodity in the state. Lumber prices have been rising and falling fairly consistently these past few months. And with a new website rolled out by the Mississippi Ag Department, Zach decided to see just what moves Mississippi timber.
If you drive through or fly over Mississippi, you'll see very quickly that this state is a sea of green woodlands. With such abundance comes a unique industry, forestry, the 3rd largest industry in the state, bringing in $3.3 billion of income and creating over 64,000 forestry-related jobs.
Mississippi is over 2/3 forest land. That's about 19 million acres. Over 3/4 of that is privately owned, and there's about 3,000 certified American tree farms in the state. They grow hardwood, softwood, or both. I reached out to Ginger Williamson, Timber Commerce Liaison for the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce, to find out more.
Mississippi is the 3rd largest timber producer by acres produced, with nearly 20 million acres of forest land in the southeast. Predominantly, the majority of the hardwood that is milled for lumber in our state is red oak, and of course the softwood is southern yellow pine. We have nearly 1 billion green tons of forest growing in our forest land. That's a lot of timber. So we are well situated both in the southeast and nationwide as far as our timber resource, and really globally.
With these resources, it only makes sense that Mississippi timber finds its way to the domestic marketplace. But what you might not know is just how much it's also going international.
One of the things that we have begun to do here is to host international buyers to come to Mississippi. They're familiar with other states and their timber resources, but they haven't been as familiar with what Mississippi has to offer. So we have hosted international buyers from India, China, Vietnam, Spain, Great Britain, Mexico, Dominican Republic, lots of different countries. And when you tell them that we have 20 million acres of forest land, it blows their mind, because some of these countries don't have 20 million acres, much less 20 million acres of harvestable forest land. So it is a real eye-opener.
With that kind of impact on the world stage, it leads to an obvious question. We've got the wood, we've got the buyers, but what exactly are they buying?
We have a lot of dimensional lumber. We have utility poles that are shipped all over the world. We have a lot of beams that can be used for construction mats that are used in the oil fields and various other construction sites. We have, of course, wood pellets, and that's a huge product right now globally. Wood pellets are used for power. So Japan uses a lot of our wood pellets for energy. Throughout Europe, they use a lot of the wood pellets for home heating. But on the larger scale, they're used for energy production in replacement, oftentimes, of coal.
With such an important resource, it only makes sense that we would do our best to preserve it. Mississippi tree growers and harvesters have adopted practices that will help keep our timberlands healthy for future generations.
Sustainability is very important to us, and we have that all the way from loggers going through Sustainable Forestry Initiative training to the way our forests are managed. And so part of our finding markets helps with managing our forest properly to be able to find markets for different aspects of forestry.
With the advent of safer practices, the stewardship of growers who love their land, and the assistance of state and federal programs, it looks like Mississippi forestry is going to reach new highs in the coming years. It may not be the #1 timber producing state, but they do make an impact, and they try to do it right. For Farm Week, I'm Zach Ashmore, reporting.
Back in 2018, the Wall Street Journal published an article entitled "Thousands of Southerners Planted Trees for Retirement. It Didn't Work." Its basic premise reverberated throughout the Southeast, where there are a lot of tree farmers. But as you might suspect, there's actually more to this story. Forestry is Mississippi's #3 ag commodity. We looked deeper into the idea of growing trees for retirement. As it turns out, we didn't have very far to look.
I just always have loved land and being outside and camping out and Boy Scouts and different things. And we've got a real pretty lake we sit out by every afternoon, and just enjoy being outside, listening to birds and looking at the clouds.
Bobby Watkins was born to be a tree farmer. These pines, planted 30 years ago just outside the peaceful town of Aberdeen, Mississippi, are both his retirement income and his legacy. Today, under his watchful eye, Bobby's friend and trusted logger Rodney Johnson is doing the final harvest on land bought long ago by Bobby's grandfather after World War I. The pines, he says, are in his blood.
I started coming up here in the 50s, actually, with my grandfather, and most of this land was in row crops, soybeans, corn, grain sorghum. That really wasn't the best use for the land, and so the best use is trees. And so we started planting pine trees in these old soybean and cotton fields in the late 80s.
Back in the day, Bobby got degrees from Mississippi State in animal science, agronomy, and entomology. For the next 30 years, he worked in corporate America in the research end of agricultural chemicals. All of that was excellent preparation for someone interested in forestry, which he's been doing exclusively for the last decade and a half. It also helped him develop a long-term plan.
We have a management plan, so everything's written down. Of course, the plan can change and you can modify it, but if you have a road map, like a flight plan, a plan to follow for 30 years to 50 years, you can follow that plan. It makes it a lot easier on everybody, especially your extended family and friends that you can share it with. Rodney, y'all will be through in another couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then what do you think I'm gonna have to spend or do to get ready to site prep and to plant?
Yeah.
Rodney Johnson has known Bobby for 20 years. A veteran logger and Logger of the Year himself in 2017, Johnson has done 2 thinnings on Bobby's land and now the final harvest in a 30-year rotation. The two of them have looked far ahead over the years to maximize the tree harvest in every way. And by the way, if you're a landowner and want Rodney to cut for you, you'll need to make an appointment at least 2 years out. His company is that much in demand.
Bobby loves the land. He loves the trees and he's proud of what he's done. He's worked really hard over the years to do it. And Bobby studies and he makes informed decisions. And Bobby's not looking for tomorrow, but he's looking for the future.
Needless to say, that kind of effort and foresight in their partnership has also maximized the money both of them have made over that time.
I've come over here quite a few times and we walked through the property and looked at it and looking down the road, we'll say, you know, in 5 years we need to do this. And you know, I've always said no plan is a plan to fail. I didn't make that up. Somebody else said it a long time ago. But in the timber industry, and if you're farming trees, you don't get to do the harvest that often. So you need to plan for the future.
Another partner essential to the success of a tree farmer is a forester. Davis Lovelace is a veteran. He has a degree in forestry and wildlife management and worked for the Mississippi Forestry Commission for a time. His advice is priceless.
Well, the first thing that I would ask a landowner is, what's your goals? What do you want to do? What do you want out of this property? For most people, it's a legacy. You know, what am I going to leave to my children? To others, it's an investment. What kind of money am I going to make on this? To others, it's recreation. You know, how do you spend your time in the woods? I mean, there's a lot of different directions that you could go, but it all depends on the first thing is, what is the landowner's goals for their property? What do they want off of it? Trees grow like weeds in this part of the world. So whether you want to do it or not, it's going to happen. You have to look at it like a crop, just like any other crop. Whether it's cotton, soybeans, rice, peanuts. The only difference in this commodity and those commodities is the rotation, right? You're looking at a 1-year rotation for row crop and a 30-year rotation till final harvest on trees. You will get a return on your investment within the first 10 to 12 years, depending on what kind of ground you are, because you're going to thin it. Then you're going to wait another 10 years or so, and then you're going to thin it again. Like, this is the 4th time that he's made money off of this ground here.
So, even though wood prices aren't exactly what they were years ago, many of the thousands of tree farmers in the country will still make money and will still have something substantial to hand down.
It can work and it does work. It not just can, it still does work. I don't know anybody that planted pine trees that lost money. Everybody I've cut their trees for got money for them and made a profit. It might not have been potentially what they thought it would be, but they still did well. You can still buy land, and you can still invest, and you can still make money. I'm still doing it. I'm still buying land and trees. You just have to look for the right opportunity. When I buy a car, I don't go out and buy the first one that I see. I don't buy at the first price they quote me at generally. So it's all about your negotiation skills and looking and, you know, just finding the right fit for you and what your circumstances are.
Of course, there's an eco-impact too. Bobby is proud of how his trees stimulate the environment and impact his tree farming strategies amplify.
Each tree in a year produces about 220 pounds of oxygen. After they take the CO2 in, they split it off. We're storing carbon. We're making 220 pounds of oxygen per year. A person breathes about 1,600 pounds of oxygen. So 8 trees out here growing produce enough oxygen for you for a year.
And lest someone look at the empty land left behind after a final harvest and criticize the lack of trees, Bobby knows that after the next planting and rotation, there will come an even stronger harvest.
I'm sure somebody would look at this clear cut and say you shouldn't be destroying trees. We've got an overabundance of trees, and I'm taking out older trees that are not going to live forever. So we're harvesting something that's a renewable resource that's not going to live forever and replacing it with even better growing vigorous trees.
Bottom line, Southerners have planted trees for retirement and in the process created a nest egg that sustained both the here and now and will cradle the generations to come. After all, as the saying goes, money may not grow on trees, but it's a darn good start.
Mr. Watkins showed me several checks he earned from the final harvest on his land, but it's clear it's not just about the money. He cares deeply about the land. Well, next week, a precious encore. She was just 11 years old, but you'd never have known it. In just a year, 4-H'er Peyton Bell had come far. She was young but driven, and she'd earned a bushel of awards that proved she loved what she was doing. The rest of what they call her goat village was right there too, helping her roll with the punches. The sweet story of a young girl who lit up the ring. That's next time on Farm Week. Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next week. Thanks for watching.